Our next speaker is the Deputy Chief Pilot, Jet Airways, Captain Kush Agarwal. Captain Agarwal has been flying with Jet Airways for the past decade. He was the youngest pilot to receive the position of Deputy Chief Pilot and won Best Student Pilot of the Year at Bass Aviation College, Sydney in 2007. He was also selected as one of the youngest pilots to receive training approval from DGCA in 2012. Captain Agarwal, welcome.
Hi, good morning. It's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be standing here and talking to all of you and sharing the stage with such distinguished people, sharing the forum with such distinguished dignitaries and business people from India and New Zealand. And I extend my thank you and gratitude to everyone for putting this together and having us come all the way from India and hosting us. Before I start, I have to acknowledge INZBC and NZT for the fantastic job they've done in putting this together. My personal experience with all of this has been seamless, and it's been an absolute pleasure to come here. So thank you for that to all the great people at both the organizations. It's interesting to talk at this forum, and especially after the three speakers that have spoken before me. Especially, I've had a chance to visit some of the New Zealand businesses of the last 2 days and see the great work that New Zealand is doing. So Ken, it's also interesting that you speak about Pune, because I'm from Pune. So it's very nice to see the beautiful slides you have on my city, and it'll be a pleasure to show you around some more when you're there next. So I look forward to that. A lot of things that have been spoken about today are already very pertinent, and I hope they add value to everything that you aspire to develop between the two countries. My presentation is going to focus on the aviation sector and some of the challenges actually that the growth has. Everyone talks about the growth in India, and I started designing my presentation with statistics and data, and I quickly changed all that because I decided that there'll be a lot of people that are far better at doing that than I am. It's not my primary job. I fly airplanes. And I was right. Some of the statistics and data that people have put across and the experience that people have in the room is far more than me. What I can try to shed some light on today is some of the challenges we have in this industry. And, I think it was His Excellency, Mr. Kohli, that said yesterday that in every problem lies opportunity. And so, what I'd like to highlight is not only the problems, but the opportunities that New Zealand businesses can find in the aviation industry and be part of our great growth story. So I'll start my presentation with that. So if you see, my presentation is titled Indian Aviation, a Difficult Adolescence. And I picked that title primarily because our industry as we know it today is still in its adolescence. While Indian aviation has been around for more than 70 years actually, it's the current avatar of Indian aviation is still in its adolescence, and it behaves very much like an adolescent. It has promising growth, but it's got its whims, it's got its difficulties. It's difficult to deal with. Those of you that are parents and have dealt with adolescent children would understand this, and I'll try to touch upon that as we go along. So that's why I've picked this title, Indian Aviation, a Difficult Adolescence, great potential for growth, and hopefully will become a mature, strong adult, but currently still trying to find its true wings and colors. A little bit about me, just a couple of minutes. I joined Jet Airways, like Ms. Priyanka said, 10 years ago. New Zealand is relevant to me because I did my flying training in Australia, which is similar to New Zealand. I have a lot of colleagues and friends that trained in New Zealand and say great things about the quality of training and the standards here. And I truly view this region, this part of the world, as a with great opportunity to provide skilled labor, especially pilots, to the Indian aviation industry. So I've been with Jet Airways. I have a chance to work in the management, and my story is in some ways very reflective of the Indian aviation industry. Like Priyanka said in my bio, I've had an opportunity to do this quite young, and that's true of most of the Indian aviation professionals running the industry today. So I'll talk about the growth in Indian aviation and how the challenges we have in dealing with the growth, cost and infrastructure, the manpower crisis, pilot training, the road ahead, operational successes and current gaps, and some tapped and untapped opportunities. I'll take about 7 to 10 minutes, not more than that, and I'll try to make this relevant to New Zealand businesses and the opportunities, and hopefully try to keep it a little bit interesting as we go along. So growth in Indian aviation, like I said, I'm not an economist. We've seen a lot of statistics, and all of them are accurate. You spoke about the growth of the aviation industry across the world, Scott, and the traffic and the growth of the Indian domestic sector. I think, Mr. Nair, you said earlier we're the third largest domestic sector, due to grow phenomenally with more than 900 aircrafts over the next 10 years. And these numbers sound phenomenal. I mean, they sound great, and it is great. I had the privilege of flying our brand new 737 MAX in from Seattle earlier this year, and we have 225 on order. So it's just fantastic. But what are the challenges that this comes with? Passenger traffic in India has, in the last 10 years, it's more than doubled. It's become 2.5 times. And we're talking about 183 million passengers a year in India at the moment. We were talking about the population of New Zealand and Sri Lanka, and the scale of things is just mind-blowing. And while this is a great opportunity, it's also phenomenal challenges. As per Airbus, the same source you cited for your economic growth, the Indian domestic traffic is set to grow by a CAGR of 8.8% over the next 20 years. I'm saying 20 years. It's a long time, and this kind of growth is unprecedented. International traffic is set to grow at an average of a CAGR of 5.4% over the same period. So when you talk about 367 passengers a day, there's much more scope for growth into markets, and New Zealand can definitely be one of those. I'll just touch upon some themes that people have already spoken about. I won't spend too much time. There were already statistics put out about our GDP. His Excellency spoke about potential for the GDP growth, and this emergence of India as a high-growth economy has fueled a double-digit growth in aviation in the last few years. And the forecast looks good, and we've been quite successful in this part of the industry. Our middle class, I put the number 300. It's actually 300 million additional flyers expected over the next 20 years, with a higher propensity for travel and tourism. So it's staggering, right? It's amazing. We're looking at, the government has been supporting us in many ways, the industry. We have the UDAN scheme that people have talked about yesterday and today. We have a higher focus on regulation, oversight, infrastructure. We have, companies like GMR and other companies doing such a great job in overhauling all of this. But once again, is it enough? Is it actually going to support the growth that we're looking at? Just to give you an idea of how the challenges we have and how we're dealing with this at the moment, we have routes and network, manpower, and aircrafts as the themes I've picked particularly. The growth in the industry has required us to absolutely change our strategies. And for an airline which was typically, or an industry which was typically hub and spoke, we've had to go point to point. We're trying to connect tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and this has come with huge challenges. We have slot constraints, infrastructure constraints. We're flying into small airports, and this means that we've had to reallocate assets and people across the country. I'll give an example of what kind of challenge this is. When we fly into a tier 2 or a tier 3 airport and we have a technical problem, recovery of an aircraft from somewhere like that becomes a 24-hour event with impact on our network. We may have 1 or 2 flights a day into that station, and getting manpower and material in is a huge challenge. The road network is not as good. And these are realities of the industry that people don't talk about. It looks good on paper, but it's huge today. The problems we face with this are not small. Simple thing with allocation of assets and manpower, we went from, we doubled the number of crew bases we had last year. And people don't want to stay out of metros and out of their homes. So it's been a huge challenge to, get people to the places we need them to be. And we're dealing with those kind of troubles. Aircraft, we've been inducting aircraft into the industry. We have one of the highest utilizations of aircrafts across the world. And, we fly our aircrafts really hard. We have good equipment, but we utilize it really well. We have cabin densification that the industry has gone through. We have a high number of low-cost carriers right now trying to optimize infrastructure and constraints. Manpower, crew, pilots and cabin crew, safety critical staff and other skilled staff. Why I've picked this is airlines have the need for safety critical staff. Any staff which is safety critical has a gestation period for training and deployment. And, we suffer from attrition. So this is another challenge. And here I look at this as an opportunity for New Zealand businesses to get into this space in terms of providing skilled staff, pilots, cabin crew, other trained staff for the airline environment in India. Some of the other challenges, regulation. I believe the head of the CAA is here today, and it's interesting that New Zealand has this kind of relationship. The industry has this kind of relationship with the regulator. We're only now seeing this in India. We have open dialogue. The industry has open dialogue with the regulator, with the ministries, and the regulator is struggling to catch up. Just day before yesterday, there was an article in the news which talks about India's safety rating dropping below Pakistan and Myanmar. And the reason, I can see someone laughing, and it's the reason the safety rating has dropped is not because we're unsafe or we have a high number of accidents. It's dropped because the regulator has a limited ability to regulate the number of flights that we have. They just don't have enough inspectors. They don't have enough trained staff to give us the kind of oversight that would be considered safe in terms of international standards. And it's there again is an opportunity. There has been a lot of positive change. To give the government and the regulator credit, they have come a long way, and it's really positive, and I do see this moving forward in the years to come. Policy alignment. We have, the current government has got a national civil aviation policy, and they are trying to align this with industry best practices. Certain schemes are very unique and required for the Indian environment, but some of them are very challenging for the industry to implement. And maybe some speakers later will talk about that. I don't have the time to go into that in detail. Infrastructure, major greenfield and brownfield projects in India, upgradation and optimization, and a center and state focus. Once again, we had Mr. Andrew talk about what has been done with the airports, and as an end user, I can say this is a fantastic success story. The way Indian airports have been transformed, hats off to you guys, and thank you for the great work you're doing in facilitating the industry. As an end user, I always say, Mumbai airports become big, Delhi's become bigger. It's a free weight loss program for pilots. We spend less on medical expenses because pilots just walk so much to the terminals. But it's facilitated, movement of traffic and ease of use for our customers, and ability to really leverage the growth opportunities of this industry. Just one small slide on the cost, and why I've put this up is a lot of you probably know this, but just to highlight how difficult it is regardless of the opportunity in the country. While the industry is enjoying growth, costs are high and it demands high load factors. We have very high load factors in India, but we're still having a tough time making money. The industry is also highly competitive, and one of the things in India as a domestic customer in India is extremely cost conscious. So we still have $50 tickets from New Delhi to Mumbai, and that's not changed a lot in the last 7 or 8 years. And a customer is not easily willing to pay more than that. So for a product like a full service airline, it becomes very difficult to actually sell that product and buy customer loyalty. Just to give an example, when you look at fuel, this is statistics from 2016 and 17. This is taken from the DGCA website. It's an average cost of airlines in India. Fuel and rentals of flight equipment is 45%. Flight equipment and maintenance is 10%. So that's 55% of our costs are in dollars. We buy fuel, we rent airplanes and equipment in dollars. And as most of you know better than me, our dollar to rupee conversion is not have been good. Fuel costs have gone up, so Indian airlines are struggling with this today. So as good as nice as it sounds, we have a need for efficiency and optimization as the industry grows if we want to be sustainable. Airports, while you guys have done a great job with the airports, two of our key airports, Mumbai and Delhi, we've seen huge upgradation, huge. It's been phenomenal. And as a pilot, it's been a great experience to see how everything from the taxiways, the runways, the terminal, baggage handling, passenger handling, everything has gone up phenomenally. But statistics say that by 2019, Mumbai will be at capacity, where in 2018. In 2022, Delhi will be at capacity. And these are our two biggest hubs. So, we talk about growth, 8.8% CAGR. Where are we going to grow? And we all know that there are projects that are in the works, but will we be able to bring these projects on fast enough and efficiently enough to support the growth? It's a question mark. Just to give you an idea, we're very proud of Mumbai Airport. Mumbai Airport hit a record of 980 movements in a span of 24 hours. What that translates to is an airplane taking off or landing in less than 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, there's an airplane that's taken off or landed in Mumbai. Mumbai has a single runway. It's a small runway. And Mumbai handles narrow-body aircrafts, wide-body aircrafts, 380s, a whole range of airplanes. But that's it. That's how far as we can get. They aspire to reach 48 movements an hour, but it's unlikely that will happen anytime soon. And the center and the state are working to reactivate airports in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. However, this will continue to remain a challenge for us and will involve a strategy shift. I'll just touch upon this. CNS and ATFM. We love jargon in aviation. And C is communication, navigation, and surveillance. India is going through a big upgradation in air traffic flow management and CNS. And this is also a great opportunity for New Zealand-based companies if they have any expertise in technology. So an example of this is we had Air New Zealand did a presentation at Boeing in March where they talked about how New Zealand has started using, Air New Zealand operates to small airports in New Zealand that don't have very good navigation facilities, and they've started using satellite-based navigation to conduct approaches in bad weather into these airports. And that's the kind of thing that we can use in India. So, we met some companies here that have potential to develop these kind of procedures and equip Indian organizations and even help the regulator or the government with this. So, there is good opportunity. Finally, the manpower crisis. We have supply of qualified pilots in the industry is very tight. It's not only difficult to find trained crew, but it's also difficult to retain them. We have tried all kinds of things. We've become a training school for the Middle East. So we have pilots that come to us for 5 years, 6 years, get all their ratings and hours, and then transition to Emirates, Etihad, and Qatar. And it's really become hard to keep pilots back. And we pay some of the high salaries in the industry, and we're trying to work out innovative ways like flexible work patterns, 8 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 5 weeks on, 1 week off, all kinds of things, benefits, privileges, free travel, medical, all this to try and retain pilots, and it is expensive. Costs of training and retention are very high, and innovative solutions in training and retention are required. There's a requirement for optimization in scheduling and training, and what this means is we have another very good New Zealand-based company that presented to Indian companies on schedule optimization. They're able to provide a solution where they will route our crew in a manner that we need less crew per day. And the impact of this is understated. If they can give us a saving of 10 crew sets a year, just 10 crew sets, we have 1,800 pilots just in our airline, more than 1,800 pilots. If they can save us 10 crew sets a year, that's $1 million saving right there. So there's great opportunity for this, and New Zealand-based companies are providing solutions. Yeah. Okay, sure. A lot of you are, you know what the bullwhip effect is. It's a supply chain problem. We have that with pilots, and the industry needs to deliver 200,000 plus pilots to the Asia Pacific region in the next 20 years. And New Zealand, step up. Great opportunity here. Great opportunity here. Right? To give you an idea, I'll just take a couple of minutes more. The average pilot life cycle anywhere in the world, especially in New Zealand, 3 years as a trainee pilot, 4 years in charter, 3 years as a second officer. So that's almost 10 years there to get into the cockpit of an airline. Another 10 years as an airline first officer, so 20 years before you become a captain. In my 10 years in Jet Airways, I am the deputy chief pilot. So that shows you the stark difference. In the Indian pilot life cycle, a trainee pilot spends 2 or 3 years. There's no general aviation, no second officer. He goes straight to the cockpit of an airline. That's from a Cessna to a Boeing, right away. And 5 years as a first officer, 5 years as a captain, 5 or 7 years, and then can continue as a captain or become a trainer. While this is phenomenal, it provides huge challenges to us because today in India, it is estimated that approximately 60% of our cockpits have a combined in-seat experience of less than 1,000 hours. And what this means is that the trainees that come to us and the training that we do needs to be very high quality. And here again, New Zealand schools and New Zealand aviation is famous for giving high quality trainees. Just some more statistics. DGCA issued 2,000 licenses last year. Not even half of those were trained in India, so that's the potential for the market. We need standardization, high standards of training, good training management systems, evidence-based training, safety and a training feedback loop, and minimizing time and cost. And once again, huge challenges. New Zealand today, I was talking to somebody here that has a flying training school. They're talking about 80 students and 100 students a year. Thanks so much. So, this is something that, again, we have huge potential. Excuse me. This is what it looks like. CPL training, that's not turned out right. CPL training, employability, type rating, line training, and recurrent training and upgrade is what we spend time on. The boxes should have superimposed on top. CPL training, employability, type rating, which is training to be in an airline cockpit, and line training are things that we've outsourced in the past. We have stopped outsourcing line training for safety reasons and if we're able to outsource the bottom three, we can spend more time on our recurrent and upgrade training, which is important for safety standards. To give you an idea, all this was in-house earlier. Today, we are able to outsource type rating, transition training from one airplane to another, and we've also got cadet pilot programs which have begun. So there's been a lot of interest about cadet pilot programs. This is something that the industry truly needs. I'll just run through the last few slides because I think I'm over time. We've had some operational successes and gaps. We've covered some gaps also. It's not been all bad. The industry today is benchmarked, against the best airlines in the world. We deploy high-tech technology. Our pilots are highly professional. Our safety standards are right up there with the best in the world. And we've achieved this through, true spirit of innovation and keeping it going. We have had support from a lot of countries in the world. We've hired expatriate pilots and gotten the best world know-how. And a lot of these solutions have been provided by companies that are outside of India, and including New Zealand-based companies. So, for businesses that are in New Zealand and entrepreneurs in India that are willing to work with New Zealand, there's a lot of opportunity in this space to provide technological solutions to airlines and to aviation companies in India. This is just an example of, crewing solutions, flight planning, leave solutions, safety monitoring. A lot of these solutions are already deployed and successful in the Indian industry. My last slide for the day. I've not even had a chance to talk about this. And while I'm not an expert, it's still pertinent to bring about in this forum. Today, general aviation in India is underserved. We don't even have an established general aviation industry. When I say general aviation, I talk about things like charter flights, things like crop dusting, banner towing, all kinds of operations in India these kind of operations are typically common in places like New Zealand. Maintenance, repair, and overhaul. 900 airplanes coming to India. They have to go somewhere for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Tier 2 and Tier 3 suppliers. Mr. Som Mittal was talking to me yesterday, and he said, it appears that in the aviation industry, except for the airline, everyone seems to make money. So it's a great business if you're a tier 2 or a tier 3 supplier. Airports make money, our distribution systems make money, our sales partners make money, everyone but us seems to make money. It's typically a monopoly or a duopoly, but if somebody can get into a tier 2 or tier 3 supply channel to an airline, it's great opportunity there. Training we've already talked about, IT support and services, ancillary services, something similar to what Sir Ken is doing for the industry. And another very interesting forum that has opened up recently with regulation in India is RPAS, remotely piloted aerial systems, which is drone technology. There's huge opportunity for this as we've just got regulation started on this in India. So sorry I've had to rush through that, just a lot to say, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I look forward to talking to some of you as the day goes on and listening to some of your interesting presentations. Thanks so much. Thank you.